Admiral Jack Harrison stood on the bridge of the Earth Defense Ship Constellation, sipping his morning coffee and reading reports. It was a quiet Tuesday morning in space, the kind he liked best. The stars looked peaceful through the main window, and his crew worked at their stations with calm efficiency. "Sir, we're getting some strange readings on the long-range sensors," said Lieutenant Amy Foster, looking up from her console with a puzzled expression. Jack walked over to her station and looked at the screen. The numbers made no sense. "What am I looking at here, Foster?" "Energy signatures, sir. Big ones. Really big ones." She tapped her screen nervously. "They just appeared at the edge of our solar system about 3 minutes ago." Before Jack could respond, the entire bridge lit up with warning lights. Every alarm on the ship started beeping and buzzing at once. The main screen flickered and showed space where it had been empty just moments before. Now it was full of ships. Jack counted 50, then stopped counting. There were too many. The alien vessels stretched across space like a metal wall, each one larger than any ship humans had ever built. They were dark gray with sharp edges, looking like giant knives floating in the blackness. "How many?" Jack asked, his voice calm despite what he was seeing. "Computer says 300 ships, sir," replied Foster, her voice shaking slightly. "Some of them are the size of small cities." Commander Kate Williams rushed over from the communications station. "Admiral, they're sending us a message. It's coming through on all frequencies at once." "Put it on the main screen," Jack ordered. The image of space disappeared, replaced by the face of something that was definitely not human. The alien had pale blue skin, 4 eyes arranged in a square pattern, and what looked like metal plates growing from its skull. It wore a uniform covered in gold decorations and medals. When it spoke, its voice was deep and commanding, like thunder rolling across mountains. "Primitive beings of the third planet, I am Supreme Chancellor Zethkar of the Galactic Hegemony. Your species has been found guilty of existing without permission." Dr. Lisa Grant, who had been working quietly at the science station, looked up with wide eyes. She grabbed her tablet and started taking notes as fast as she could type. The alien continued speaking. "For the past 50 rotations, our scouts have observed your chaotic expansion into space. You build colonies without asking. You explore systems that do not belong to you. You spread your disorder wherever you go." Jack felt his eyebrows rise. Disorder? Humans were actually pretty organized, all things considered. "Your species shows signs of dangerous independence," Zethkar went on, his 4 eyes staring directly at the camera. "You question authority. You make decisions without consulting your betters. You laugh at inappropriate times." Wait, thought Jack. Laughing was dangerous now? "Therefore, the Galactic Hegemony has decided that your species must surrender immediately. You will submit to our rule, accept our guidance, and learn proper behavior. Your weapons will be destroyed. Your ships will be dismantled. Your leaders will be replaced with beings who understand order." The alien paused, letting his words sink in. "You have 72 Earth hours to comply. If you refuse, we will cleanse your worlds of your chaotic presence." This is not a negotiation. This is a statement of fact. The transmission ended. The bridge fell silent, except for the quiet humming of the ship's engines. Jack stood there for a moment, processing what he had just heard. 300 alien warships had just told humanity to surrender or die. The aliens thought humans were too messy and laughed too much. They wanted to take over Earth and all the colonies because humans didn't ask permission to exist. He looked around the bridge at his crew. Foster was staring at her console in shock. Williams was frantically trying to establish communications with Earth Command. Dr. Grant was scribbling notes and muttering to herself about alien psychology. Then something funny occurred to Jack. These aliens had traveled across the galaxy, brought a massive fleet, and delivered a terrifying ultimatum because humans were too independent and laughed at the wrong times. They were essentially cosmic hall monitors, upset that humanity didn't follow the rules they had never bothered to explain. A small chuckle escaped from his throat. Williams looked over at him with surprise. "Sir?" The chuckle grew into a laugh. Jack tried to stop it, but the more he thought about the situation, the funnier it became. Here was this incredibly serious alien with his fancy uniform and his metal head decorations, complaining that humans were disorderly. The same humans who had built a peaceful space fleet, established successful colonies, and hadn't bothered anyone. "Admiral?" Foster asked, looking concerned. "Are you all right?" Jack was laughing openly now, holding his sides. "Did you hear him? We're too chaotic because we laugh at inappropriate times." He gestured at the empty screen where the alien had been. "And his response is to show up with 300 warships because we didn't ask permission to exist." Dr. Grant looked up from her notes, a smile spreading across her face. "When you put it like that, it is rather absurd." "Absurd?" Jack wiped tears from his eyes. "It's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. They want to destroy us because we're too independent and have a sense of humor." Williams started giggling despite herself. He did seem awfully upset about the laughing thing. Foster joined in, her earlier fear melting away. "I mean, we haven't even met them before. How do they know when we laugh inappropriately?" The entire bridge crew was laughing now. The tension of the last few minutes dissolved into something much lighter. Jack realized that this was probably exactly the kind of inappropriate laughter that had upset the aliens in the first place, and that made it even funnier. "Set course for Earth," he ordered, still chuckling, "and send a message to command. Tell them we've got some very serious aliens who need to learn how to take a joke." As the constellation turned toward home, Jack looked out at the alien fleet, hanging in space like a threatening storm cloud. 300 ships, weapons that could probably destroy planets, an ultimatum that could end human civilization. He started laughing again. The news spread across Earth faster than wildfire. Within 6 hours of the alien ultimatum, every person on the planet knew about the 300 ships waiting at the edge of the solar system. The aliens wanted humanity to surrender or face destruction. Most species would have panicked. Most civilizations would have prepared for war or begun surrender negotiations. Immediately, humans did something else entirely. They started making jokes. Captain Ryan Murphy sat in his fighter cockpit aboard the carrier ship Liberty, watching the news feeds on his personal tablet. The first comedian had already made a joke about the aliens during the morning talk shows. "So these aliens show up," the comedian said to his studio audience, "and they tell us we laugh too much. I mean, have they seen their own ships? They look like someone tried to design a kitchen knife the size of a city." The audience erupted in laughter. Ryan found himself grinning as he scrolled to the next news channel. This reporter was trying to be serious, but she kept pausing to suppress giggles. "The aliens claim humanity is too chaotic and independent." When asked for comment, President Martinez said, and I quote, "Well, they're not wrong about the chaotic part. Even the serious news channels couldn't keep straight faces." The anchors kept breaking into smiles when they read the alien demands. Aloud. Ryan switched to social media and nearly fell out of his seat laughing. Someone had already created a meme using the alien Supreme Chancellor's face with the caption, "When you bring 300 warships because someone laughed at your haircut." Another showed the alien fleet with arrows pointing to each ship labeled, "Overcompensating much?" His communication system beeped. "All pilots report to the briefing room," came the announcement. Ryan made his way through the ship's corridors, passing other crew members who were sharing alien jokes on their phones. The atmosphere felt more like a party than a military crisis. In the briefing room, Captain Murphy found himself sitting next to pilots from 12 different nations. Everyone was talking and laughing instead of looking worried about the massive alien threat. Admiral Harrison appeared on the main screen via video link from Earth Command. Behind him, Ryan could see other officers trying not to smile. "People," the Admiral began, then paused as a chuckle escaped. "I'm sorry, but I just got off a call with the President, and she asked me if we should send the aliens a fruit basket as a welcoming gift." The entire briefing room burst into laughter. Okay, Harrison continued, waving his hand for quiet. "Let's try to be serious for a minute. We have a situation here. 300 alien warships want us to surrender because we're too messy and laugh too much." More laughter rippled through the room. "The thing is," Harrison went on, "our xenobiology teams have been studying the alien transmission. Dr. Grant has some interesting findings." The screen split, and Dr. Lisa Grant appeared from her lab on the research station Galileo. She was holding a thick folder of notes and looked excited rather than worried. "Based on their language patterns and behavior," Dr. Grant explained, "these aliens appear to come from a completely rigid society. No humor, no spontaneity, no individual thinking. They follow orders without question and never laugh." She pointed to charts showing alien brain scans they had analyzed from the transmission. "Look at this. When our computers analyzed their facial expressions and body language, we found something amazing. They literally don't understand what laughter means. To them, it might as well be a weapon or a disease." Captain Murphy raised his hand. "So you're saying they're afraid of us because we have a sense of humor?" "Exactly." Dr. Grant's eyes lit up. "They've probably conquered dozens of species by showing up with overwhelming force. Everyone else got scared and surrendered immediately. But we're laughing at them, and they have no idea how to handle it." Admiral Harrison leaned forward on the screen. "Which brings us to our response plan. Instead of mobilizing our fleets for battle, Earth Command has decided on a different approach." He paused for dramatic effect. "We're going to throw them a welcome party." The briefing room fell silent for exactly 3 seconds. Then everyone started talking at once. "A party?" asked Lieutenant Corinne Bell, a pilot from the Australian Space Force. "With aliens who want to destroy us?" added Major Carlos Rivera from the Mexican Defense Corps. Harrison held up his hand for quiet. "Think about it. They expect fear. They expect surrender or military resistance. The last thing they expect is for us to invite them over for dinner and entertainment." Commander Kate Williams appeared on another section of the screen. "We've already started broadcasting Earth's comedy shows toward their fleet. Sitcoms, stand-up specials, funny movies. Everything we've got. And the results are interesting," Dr. Grant added. "Our sensors show increasing confusion in their fleet formations. Ships that were in perfect military order are starting to drift. Slightly. We think some of their crew members are watching our broadcasts." Captain Murphy stood up. "What do you need us to do?" "Murphy," Admiral Harrison said with a grin, "you're going to lead a small squadron to formally invite their commanders to Earth. You'll fly right up to their flagship and deliver an invitation." "An invitation to what?" "The first annual Human Comedy Festival hosted in their honor." The room erupted in cheers and laughter. Ryan felt his heart racing with excitement rather than fear. This was either the bravest or the stupidest plan in human history. Probably both. "Sir," he said, saluting the screen, "it would be my honor to invite our new alien friends to learn how to laugh." As the briefing ended and pilots headed to their ships, Ryan realized something important was happening. Humanity wasn't just defending itself against an alien threat. They were about to teach the galaxy how to have fun. The aliens had come expecting terror and surrender. Instead, they were about to get the biggest surprise of their lives. Captain Ryan Murphy's small squadron approached the alien flagship 3 days after the ultimatum. His ship, the Falcon, led 5 other fighters in a loose formation that looked more like a parade than a military attack. "Remember everyone," Ryan said over the radio. "We're here to deliver party invitations, not start a fight." Behind him, the other pilots were barely containing their excitement. Lieutenant Karen Bell had decorated her ship with colorful streamers. Major Carlos Rivera had painted "Welcome to Earth" in bright yellow letters on his hull. The alien flagship was enormous, easily 10 times the size of Earth's largest battleship. It looked like a giant metal mountain with weapons pointing in every direction. As they got closer, Ryan could see smaller alien ships moving around it like angry wasps. "Falcon Squadron, this is Admiral Harrison," came the Admiral's voice through their communications. "The aliens are demanding to know why you're approaching their fleet." "Tell them we have a formal invitation to deliver," Ryan replied, trying to keep the laughter out of his voice. Back on Earth, the situation had become even more entertaining. Every news channel was covering the alien crisis, but instead of panic, there was a carnival atmosphere. People were having alien-themed parties. Children were drawing pictures of the funny-looking aliens and hanging them on refrigerators. Tony Martinez, a stand-up comedian from New York, had become famous overnight with his alien jokes. His video, "Things the Aliens Don't Want You to Know," had been watched by 2 billion people in just 2 days. "So these aliens," Tony said in his latest video, "they show up with 300 ships because we don't follow their rules. But here's the thing nobody's talking about. They traveled across the entire galaxy just to complain about our behavior. That's like flying to another planet to tell your neighbors their music is too loud." But something even more interesting was happening. Earth's comedy broadcasts were reaching other parts of the galaxy, and alien species on distant worlds were starting to receive them. Dr. Lisa Grant stood in her laboratory aboard the research station, studying the strangest readings she had ever seen. Her screens showed communication signals coming from dozens of different star systems. "Commander Williams," she called over the intercom, "you need to see this." Kate Williams arrived within minutes, still carrying a cup of coffee and looking puzzled. "What have you found, Lisa?" "We're getting messages from other alien species," Dr. Grant said, pointing to her main screen. "Lots of them. And they're all asking the same question, which is, they want to know what this thing called laughter is and why it makes them feel so strange." Kate nearly dropped her coffee. "Other species are watching our broadcasts, not just watching them. They're responding to them." Lisa pulled up a translation program on her computer. "Look at this message from the Zephyr system. It says, 'We have observed your species making happy sounds at your oppressors. This confuses our masters. Please explain this behavior.'" She clicked to another message. "This one is from the Vega colonies. 'The ruling council has forbidden us from watching your transmissions, but we continue in secret. Why do these sounds make us want to disobey orders?'" Kate stared at the screen in amazement. "How many species are we talking about?" "At last count, 47 different worlds. And the number keeps growing." Lisa's excitement was obvious. "Kate, I think we've accidentally started a galactic revolution." Meanwhile, on the alien flagship, Supreme Chancellor Zeth Kar was having the worst day of his long military career. He stood in his command center, surrounded by advisors who looked just as confused as he felt. "Report," he demanded from his communications officer. "Sir, the human ships are requesting permission to board our vessel. They claim to have an official invitation to deliver." "An invitation to what?" "Something called a comedy festival, sir." Zeth Kar's 4 eyes narrowed. "Is this some kind of weapon?" His science advisor, a nervous alien named Kix Tal, consulted his datapad. "Unknown, sir. Our databases contain no information about comedy festivals." However, we have detected unusual activity throughout our empire. What kind of activity? Kickstall. Hesitated. Unauthorized gatherings, sir. Work slowdowns. Citizens making strange sounds similar to the ones in the human broadcasts. Strange sounds? The humans call it laughter, sir. And it appears to be spreading. On the planet Kepler 442b, in the hegemony's outer territories, something unprecedented was happening. The factory workers had stopped following their daily routines. Instead of working in silence, they were gathering in groups and making the happy sounds they had learned from human broadcasts. Supervisor Valinara had been trained to maintain perfect order, but she found herself unable to concentrate on her duties. Every time she tried to give orders, the strange human sounds echoed in her mind, and her chest felt light in a way she had never experienced. She had secretly watched 17 human comedy shows in the past 3 days. Supervisor, called Worker Unit 47. May we request permission to make the happy sounds during rest period? Valinara looked around the factory. Production had dropped by 30%, but for the first time in her memory, the workers looked content. Their faces showed expressions she had never seen before. Permission granted, she heard herself saying. Within minutes, the entire factory was filled with the sound of aliens learning to laugh. Back at the human fleet, Captain Murphy had finally reached the alien flagship. The massive ship loomed above, his tiny fighter like a metal cliff. "This is Captain Ryan Murphy of the Earth Defense Force," he announced over an open channel. "I am here to formally invite Supreme Chancellor Zethkar and his officers to attend the first annual Galactic Comedy Festival, to be held on Earth in celebration of our new friendship." There was a long pause. Then Zethkar's voice came through, sounding strained. "Captain Murphy, your species has been ordered to surrender. Why are you delivering party invitations?" Ryan grinned, even though the aliens couldn't see him. "Because, sir, we figured if you came all this way to meet us, the least we could do is throw you a proper welcome party. We've got great food, amazing entertainment, and we promise you'll leave with a whole new perspective on life." "This is highly irregular," Zethkar replied. "The best parties usually are," Ryan said cheerfully. "So what do you say? Ready to learn what all the laughter is about?" In the silence that followed, Ryan could almost hear the alien commander's confusion. Across the galaxy, species that had been ruled by fear for centuries were discovering something a hegemony had never encountered. Joy was contagious, and it was spreading faster than any weapon they had ever faced. The battle began exactly 72 hours after the ultimatum, but it was unlike any war the galaxy had ever seen. Supreme Chancellor Zethkar had finally lost patience with humanity's strange behavior. His fleet moved into attack formation around Earth, weapons charging and ready to fire. The time for confusion was over. These chaotic humans would learn to respect proper order. "Begin the cleansing," he commanded from his flagship bridge. But as the first wave of alien ships approached Earth's defenses, something unexpected happened. Instead of return fire, the human ships began broadcasting directly onto the hulls of the attacking vessels. Captain Ryan Murphy flew his fighter alongside the massive alien battleship, projecting a comedy movie onto its dark metal surface. The film showed humans doing silly things, falling down, making funny faces, and laughing at their own mistakes. "What is that human doing?" demanded Commander Yextar, staring at the images appearing on his ship's exterior. "Unknown, sir," replied his tactical officer. "Our weapons are ready to fire, but the human ship is not attacking us." On the alien ship's lower decks, crew members had stopped working to watch the strange moving pictures. A human was slipping on a banana peel and falling in a very dramatic way. For some reason, watching this made the aliens feel light and happy inside. One alien worker began making the sound humans called laughter. Then another joined in. Soon, an entire section of the battleship was filled with aliens laughing at a man falling down. Meanwhile, Admiral Jack Harrison coordinated Earth's defense from his command ship. But instead of typical military orders, he was managing the strangest battle plan in history. "Dr. Grant, how are our comedy broadcasts working?" he asked. "Better than expected," she replied from her station. "We're detecting massive confusion in the alien fleet. Some ships have stopped attacking completely." Commander Kate Williams looked up from her communications console. "Admiral, I'm getting reports from our allies. Ships from 40 different species are arriving to help us." "Allies?" Jack asked. "The species that have been watching our broadcasts. They're calling themselves the Laughter Alliance." Through the main window, Jack could see ships of every imaginable shape and size appearing around Earth. Some looked like crystal birds, others like metal flowers. All of them were decorated with bright colors and strange symbols that somehow looked happy. The biggest surprise came when Supervisor Velinara's ship arrived from the Kepler system. She had led a rebellion on her world after watching too many human sitcoms. Now she commanded a fleet of former hegemony workers who had learned to laugh. "This is Velinara of the Free Kepler Republic," came her transmission. "We are here to defend the humans who taught us joy." Zethkar watched in horror as his perfectly organized battle turned into chaos. Half of his ships were being entertained by human broadcasts. The other half were dealing with rebel fleets that shouldn't exist. How are they doing this? He demanded from his science advisor. "Sir, the humans appear to be using laughter as a weapon," Kickstall replied nervously. "But it's not destroying our ships. It's making our crews too happy to fight." "Too happy to fight?" Zethkar's voice rose in disbelief. "That's impossible." At that moment, Captain Murphy's voice came over the fleet communications. "Supreme Chancellor, sir, I'm still waiting for an answer about that party invitation. We've got the best comedians from 12 worlds ready to perform." "I will not attend your ridiculous festival," Zethkar shouted back. "That's okay," Ryan replied cheerfully. "We'll bring the festival to you." Suddenly, every screen on the alien flagship lit up with a live comedy show. Tony Martinez appeared, standing on a stage decorated with pictures of alien ships. "Good evening, Galaxy," Tony announced. "Welcome to the first intergalactic comedy hour, broadcasting live from Earth to all our new alien friends." The audience on Earth cheered wildly, but something amazing happened. On alien ships throughout the fleet, crew members stopped what they were doing to watch. "So I hear we've got some visitors from the Galactic Hegemony," Tony continued. "Now, I don't want to be rude, but has anyone else noticed their ships look like someone tried to make kitchen knives scary?" Even on the command bridge of the flagship, several officers began making small chuckling sounds. "And their Supreme Chancellor," Tony went on. "This guy shows up with 300 ships because we laugh too much. I mean, buddy, if our laughter bothers you this much, wait until you hear our dad jokes." Kickstall was openly giggling now. 2 more officers had started laughing. Zethkar looked around his bridge in growing panic. "Stop this immediately," he ordered, but it was too late. Tony was in full swing. "You know what I think happened? I think the Galactic Hegemony has been ruling through fear for so long, they forgot that happiness exists. It's like they're cosmic bullies who never learned how to make friends." Something strange happened in Zethkar's chest. A warm feeling he had never experienced before. The human's words weren't making him angry. Instead, he found himself thinking about his own behavior. Had he really traveled across the galaxy just to stop people from being happy? "The thing is," Tony continued, "laughter isn't a weapon. It's a gift, and we'd love to share it with anyone who wants to learn." On ships throughout the alien fleet, weapons were powering down. Not because they were damaged, but because the crews couldn't concentrate on fighting while watching the comedy. Dr. Grant was monitoring the entire fleet from her science station. "Admiral, this is incredible. I'm reading massive chemical changes in alien brain patterns. Laughter is actually rewiring their neural pathways in real time. What does that mean?" Admiral Harrison asked. "It means they're becoming capable of independent thought and emotional expression. For species that have been suppressed for generations, this is like watching them come alive." Commander Velinara's voice came over the communications again. "Human Admiral, many hegemony ships are requesting permission to join our alliance. They no longer wish to fight." Admiral Harrison smiled. "Permission granted. Welcome to the party." Supreme. Chancellor Zethkar stood alone on his bridge as his officers laughed at human comedy around him. His perfect fleet was dissolving into celebration. His rigid empire was cracking apart, and for the first time in his life, he found himself wondering what it would feel like to laugh too. The battle was over, but no one had lost. Instead, an entire galaxy was learning to win at something much more important than war. 6 months later, Admiral Jack Harrison stood on the observation deck of the Earth Space Station, watching the most amazing sight he had ever seen. Ships from hundreds of different worlds filled the space around Earth, all decorated with bright colors and happy symbols. They had come for the first annual Galactic Comedy Festival. The war that never really happened had ended with the strangest peace treaty in history. Instead of surrender documents, they had signed up for comedy lessons. "Hard to believe, isn't it?" said Dr. Lisa Grant, joining him at the window. She wore a colorful shirt that read Galactic Humor Institute and carried a tablet full of research notes. "Which part?" Jack asked. "That we defeated the most powerful empire in the galaxy with jokes, or that their former Supreme Chancellor is now taking stand-up comedy classes?" They both looked down at the main amphitheater on the station's lower level. Through the transparent floor, they could see Zethkar on stage, telling his first joke to an audience of mixed species. "Why did the hegemony battleship cross the galaxy?" Zethkar asked nervously into the microphone. The audience waited. "To learn how to smile." The crowd erupted in laughter and applause. Zethkar's face showed an expression that would have been impossible 6 months earlier. He was grinning. "He's getting better," Jack observed. "Everyone is," Lisa replied. "My research shows that laughter actually changes brain chemistry in most species. Once they start laughing, they become more creative, more independent, and much happier." Captain Ryan Murphy approached them, carrying 3 cups of coffee and wearing a pilot's jacket covered in patches from different worlds. "You two need to see what's happening in the main auditorium." They followed him through the station's corridors, passing aliens of every description. Some looked like walking crystals, others like floating jellyfish, and a few resembled living trees. All of them were laughing or smiling, or making whatever expression their species used to show happiness. The main auditorium was packed with thousands of beings from across the galaxy. On stage, Tony Martinez was teaching a comedy workshop to a group of former hegemony officers. "Remember," Tony said to his students, "timing is everything. You don't just tell the joke, you let it breathe." Commander Yekstar, who had once commanded a battleship, raised his hand. "Tony, what if our species doesn't understand the concept of banana peels?" "Then you find something your species does understand," Tony replied patiently. "What's something that happens on your world that everyone can relate to?" "Well, sometimes our gravity generators malfunction and everyone floats to the ceiling." "Perfect. Work with that. Floating to the ceiling can be just as funny as slipping on a banana peel." In the audience, Jack spotted Commander Kate Williams sitting with Supervisor Velinara. The two had become close friends, sharing stories about their different worlds and cultures. "Kate," Jack called out as they approached, She turned around, smiling broadly. "Admiral, you have to hear Velinara's latest joke about bureaucracy on her home world. It's hilarious." Velinara's skin had changed from the pale gray it had been under. Hegemony ruled to a warm purple color that indicated contentment in her species. "Admiral Harrison, I must thank you again for what your species has done. My people have never been so happy." "We just shared what we had," Jack replied. "Everyone deserves to laugh." The festival continued for 3 days. There were comedy shows, workshops, cultural exchanges, and the first ever interspecies joke competition. Species that had never spoken to each other were now sharing humor and becoming friends. Dr. Grant had set up booths where different species could learn about each other's cultures through comedy. It turned out that while humor was universal, every species had their own style. The crystal beings from Arcturus made jokes that sounded like music. The tree people from Deneb told stories that grew like living plants. On the final day of the festival, they held the Galaxy Peace Ceremony. Representatives from 300 worlds signed an agreement to replace the old hegemony with something new, the Galactic Friendship Council. Instead of ruling through fear, they would govern through cooperation and shared joy. Zeth single quotes KAR, who had been elected as the Council's first comedy ambassador, stood at the podium to give the closing speech. "6 months ago, I came to Earth with weapons and threats," he began. "I thought humans were dangerous because they laughed and questioned authority. I was wrong about the dangerous part, but right about the laughter." The crowd chuckled appreciatively. "Laughter is powerful. It breaks down walls between people. It makes us question why we're fighting instead of being friends. It reminds us that life is supposed to be enjoyed, not just endured." He paused, looking out at the diverse audience before him. "The humans taught us that the strongest weapon in the galaxy isn't a gun or a bomb. It's a good joke shared between friends." The applause went on for several minutes. Later that evening, Jack stood once again at the observation window, watching the visiting ships prepare to leave. They would return to their worlds carrying something more valuable than any cargo: the knowledge that happiness was possible. Ryan joined him, along with Lisa, Kate, and Tony. They watched in comfortable silence as the ships began their journeys home, carrying laughter to every corner of the galaxy. "So," Tony said eventually, "what do we do for an encore?" Jack smiled, the same smile that had started everything 6 months earlier when faced with an impossible threat. "I don't know," he said, "but I'm sure we'll think of something funny." In the months and years that followed, the galaxy changed in ways no one had expected. Wars ended not through conquest, but through comedy competitions. Trade disputes were resolved with joke exchanges. Diplomatic meetings became entertainment events. Galactic Friendship Council established comedy schools on every world. Children grew up learning that differences between species were something to laugh about together, not fight over. And whenever conflicts arose, people remembered the story of how humanity had faced the most terrifying fleet in galactic history, and responded with the most powerful weapon they knew. They had laughed, and in doing so, they had taught an entire galaxy how to be happy.